Hello and welcome to this week's Cats Whiskers TV podcast. My name is Jono Bullard. I've got a very busy show for you this week, and my fellow presenters Balm Aaron Lord will be joining me in a little while. But what a fantastic weekend for the Panthers. 4 points from games against Coventry and Cardiff, and with the other results going our way on Sunday night, it sees Panthers up to third place in the Elite League, just a point behind Belfast and Braehead, with 2 games in hand on both those teams. After the game against Coventry, we were in the Bunkers Inn with our regular Saturday night guest Adam Reddish to talk about the game with the Blaze, so you will hear our immediate reaction to that. I'm also going to talk to Cardiff Devils fan Sean Phillips to review Sunday night's game against the Devils, and we're also going to discuss the positive outlook for the Devils since Todd Kelman took over the club as GM in the summer. Paul, Aaron and myself will discuss the other results in the Elite League and various talking points from the weekend, and we'll also answer some of your Ask CWTV questions throughout the show. And finally, we'll look ahead to this coming Saturday's game against Sheffield Steelers, and Steelers fan Scott Antcliffe will join me to talk about that. And we'll also look ahead to Sunday's game away against the Edinburgh Capitals. If you'd like to get in touch with us here at the show, you can do so via Twitter. Our address is @CatsWhiskersTV. So let's go back to Saturday night, and here's our reaction straight after Panthers' 3-1 defeat of the Coventry Blaze. Post-game in the Bunkers Inn on a Saturday night after a 3-1 Panthers victory against the Coventry Blaze in quite a testy match, I think it has to be said. I'm, of course, with Mr. Aaron Lord.
Good evening.
Mr. Paul Balm.
Hello.
And Mr. Adam Reddish, once again, our Saturday night guest.
Good evening.
I think we could say we got value for money from that game.
Well, the first period wasn't great, was it? But, I mean, apart from that, well, he'd got everything, hadn't it? Goals, fights, perceived injustice, everything you need to get a crowd going, and that's what they did.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose we was probably expecting the victory after the way that the Blaze have been playing just recently. I suppose over 3 periods that game was a complete microcosm of the Blaze season. Started well, took the lead, and then just completely and utterly collapsed.
It was the best game of hockey I've seen in a while. The first period break, I said, I still felt that if we got one, we would then go on to win the game, and it was just getting that first one. Look, the first period the Blaze played well, and you could say, well, where's all this talk about them not playing well or not being a team, etc., because they played a decent first period on the road. But look, when we got the first, I think it was always one-way traffic in a way. I honestly do think they've got problems. I see players on the ice there, and I don't know. It needs a strong coach to sort them out. I think he's got some tough decisions. For me, we just kept at our game plan. It had everything, like Paul says, and I think we stood up when we needed to stand up. We didn't let them kind of come in here and take the physical edge against us. We stood tall against them, and we thoroughly deserved the 3-1 victory for me.
Adam, was it more a case of Panthers winning the game, or was it more a case of Panthers winning the game because Blaze lost their heads?
No, I think Panthers needed to stay at it for the entirety of the 60 minutes. Like the guys have said, I think we started the game slowly, but I mean, Coventry came out with a lot to prove. Obviously their coach has been saying things in the press recently about wanting to get back to basics, to try and get some wins back on the board, and you could see that their players gave a bit of a reaction in the first 20 minutes and a lot of the second period as well. But I think Panthers obviously they kind of weathered the storm, as it were, and I thought when they came out for the third period, they gave it everything. That first goal for us was crucial, because I think when that went in, the whole shift of the game kind of went from Coventry to the Panthers, and I think that we obviously seized on that momentum, and we just kept attacking and attacking and attacking, and I think we got our deserves in the end. I think it was a justified win for us in the end, but it was a bit panicky because I thought Coventry were, for a large part of the game, going to edge it, but thankfully we showed enough resolve in the end to come out on top.
There's been a lot of talk recently about how the rivalry with Coventry is sort of overtaking the rivalry we have with Sheffield, and I think tonight probably shows that there may be a case for that. The atmosphere in the arena tonight was incredible, and the third period was probably more akin to a beer pit than a hockey arena. So do you think that's the case?
100%. I think that is your rivalry now. That's your number. You'll hear it next week, and you'll hear it this week, and you'll hear it, next Saturday. The biggest rivalry in hockey is next Saturday, but not for me at all. That is your rivalry there with Coventry. You see it on the ice. You see it. You tell me the last Sheffield game that we've played where you've had that intensity, that feistiness, a fight, and just the niggles and everything that comes with the rivalry. You do not get that in a Sheffield game. You might get it with the fans. I don't even think you're getting that nowadays. But with Coventry, that's what you want to see for me, and that is, like I say, that is your rivalry right there.
Paul, I notice you shaking your head a little bit. You don't agree?
I do and I don't. I think the rivalry is always going to be there with Sheffield. The problem is at the moment neither team are really doing anything to upset the opposition fans, to create their eyes. But look at tonight. There was plenty there for both sides to get upset about, and that's what's going to fuel a rivalry. But just because the moment the one against Coventry is more intense, I don't think the one against Sheffield's actually gone away.
Fair enough, Adam.
Yeah, like Aaron said, I think there's a case to be said to say that the new rivalry was with the Blaze and not with the Steelers, because it's all about the on-ice product, and the intensity of tonight's game was fantastic. From start to finish, both sides were giving it absolutely everything, and I've not really sensed that in the last few Nottingham-Sheffield games. They've been really cagey affairs, and they're not really that great for the crowd to watch, and the crowd can't really get into those kind of games. There's nothing for them to cheer. There's nothing to get them off the edge of their seats. So I think with the Coventry games, because tonight, the first period was a bit dull from a Panthers perspective, but in the second and the third period, there was so much for the home crowd to get enthused about. Like you said, Jono, it was almost a beer pit in the third period. I've not heard an atmosphere like that in the arena for months and months and months. It was a really, really great atmosphere, and I think the players obviously seized on that, and they were giving everything, and in return the fans were giving a lot in return too, and together, we saw ourselves over the line, fans and crowd and the players together. We got the 2 points tonight, which is great.
But is the lack of intensity in the Sheffield games? I agree, it's probably not there, because we play each other so often. There's always next time. So it's, if we lost this time, but we're playing them again in 3 weeks, we'll get them then. Is it because of that? Whereas if you play them only 2, 3, 4 times a season, every one of those games matters. Where there's a certain amount now as there's always tomorrow.
Aaron, you're now shaking your head. You disagree with that?
Well, Coventry, Sheffield, Nottingham are in the same conference, so we play Coventry the same amount of times as Sheffield, so they could say that in the fact of, we won't have that intensity this game because we're playing Coventry in so many weeks' time. So I think from a Sheffield Nottingham point of view, it's kind of like, we don't want to upset the apple cart. We do cancel each other out. I think Adam said cagey, and I think that's a good word to use against Steelers and the Panthers. But you don't see caginess in a Coventry game. You see a bit of aggro, a bit of niggles, just a dislike. You see more respect in a Sheffield Panthers game, and you see dislike in a Blaze Panthers game, and I think that then means that the rivalry's turned.
One last point to make on that. I'm a bit suspicious of the whole biggest rivalry in European ice hockey. I don't think it is by any stretch of the imagination, because I've seen games abroad where there's a lot more rivalry, and the atmosphere in the games is far more intense than Sheffield Nottingham, even though some games Sheffield Nottingham, the respective fans do make a good atmosphere. But why should it be respective general managers that have to stoke up the atmosphere for a game? Surely the on-ice action should speak for itself, and that should sell the tickets. It shouldn't be, people that have got no involvement in the on-ice product whatsoever, who are basically desperate to sell every last ticket in the arena.
Okay, I want to move on to an incident that happened in tonight's game. Greg Jusina got thrown out of the game for punching Blaze netminder Brian Stewart in the second period. I'm not going to give an opinion at the moment, but I'll give my opinion after you've given yours.
I agree with this, don't you?
Yeah, I am Simon Cowell for a podcast generation. So, what was your make on that incident? Who wants to come in first?
Go on, I'll start. I'll put my head above the parapet. Do you mean? I'd ask one question. What was he doing there in the first place? He was well out his crease. There was no penalty called. Most of us don't know the ins and outs of the rule book. I'll admit I'm one of them. Is the goalie leaving his crease during an altercation not a penalty anymore?
I think because he was behind his net. You're right, he wasn't in the vicinity of his net, which makes you think.
But he left his crease to join in,
which is true. Yeah,
and he was getting more than involved in everything. And all right, should Jusina have punched him? Probably not. But he went down like a sack of spuds. Is probably one of the cleaner.
We'll leave it at that. Sack of spuds is good. Sack of spuds is good.
I believe it's not diving; it's making sure the referee makes the correct decision. But I'd like to thank him for doing it.
Why?
Because that's what turned the game.
Actually, that's a very good point.
Because nothing gets a crowd involved like a bit of perceived injustice, and that got the crowd involved. All right, maybe it's all your fault was a bit over the top, but it got in his head, and that played a huge part in us winning that game.
Adam.
Yeah, I think Paul's right. We managed to get inside Stewart's head tonight, and it took that instant really to sow a few seeds in his head, cast a few demons and whatever you want to call it. But I think that Stewart was absolutely spooked tonight by the crowd's reaction, and it was a good atmosphere in the arena actually, because some people might say we maybe overstepped the mark by baiting the netminder that much, but I don't think so. I think that you do whatever you need to do as a fan base to give your team an advantage over the opposition. So when Stewart did that, to me it showed that he'd lost his head a little bit, and we managed to get in between his ears, and obviously I don't think that he was probably 100% for the rest of the game, so we managed to capitalise on that, and obviously got the win. So, but in terms of Jusina's punch, it was a beauty. Absolute beauty. I don't think anybody can dispute that. Absolutely textbook.
It was a good punch, but I don't know how much contact he made, because we've seen Stewart time and time again get down when somebody breaks wind near him. I don't even know how. I mean, it looked like he made a bit of contact, but to go down like that,
I think he levelled him personally. Yeah. I think he got in with a really.
I forgot we're on a podcast. I just shrugged. That doesn't work, does it?
Aaron.
Well, if the Cobra never fights again, I think we've found our Nottingham fighter. Put it that way, because
found his next opponent.
Well, I'd ask the same question as Paul. Why wasn't a penalty called on Stewart? Because for me, he got involved in the whole action, or whatever you want to call it, really. Should Jusina then punch him? At the time I was saying you can't punch a netminder, you can't punch a netminder. I'm very surprised that then didn't turn into something bigger. But did he have it coming to him? I would think that Jusina would punch somebody, especially a netminder, if there wasn't reasons behind it. And I think the fact that then Robbo had a fight and was, you could see he was a little bit angry, I think meant that it was, for me, it was poor poor officiating. Poor officiating that led to that incident. And the problem that you get with the officiating is they let it. They stand back and just watch it. They don't actually. And I know you don't want linos getting involved to stop fights and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that, but to let it get to the stage where a player has punched a netminder, isn't that a little bit too far?
Just to counter that though, there were two decisions by the referee tonight that I thought. I mean, I agree. I thought overall Hicks and Hogarth were poor, but there were two things that I thought were very good. When that altercation was happening behind the net, I think it was Hogarth broke away from the incident and turned to both benches and just held his hands up and went, "No, you are not coming on now." And right at the end, where Stewart finally got a penalty for slashing Lawrence and started to have a whine about it. He's obviously been talking to Ashley Tate for tips on how to talk to referees, and Hogarth went, "No, that was I think he called a cross check. It looked like a slash to me, but hey, what do I know? And you did it. You're getting a penalty. Now shut up." And I thought that's good because that's what it needed. Yeah.
But what's your point anyway? What's your point, Jono? We've all had our point, so the people that are listening are now waiting for you.
Oh, I loved it.
You waited that long for that?
No, let's be honest. I must admit, I agree with what Aaron said. At the time, I thought, why's he done that? That could damage our game. It could. It's another import off the ice. We're already 1-0 down. We could be in trouble here. However, and now I've had time to reflect on it. Actually, you're right. It changed the game, and I think what Paul said about perceived injustice, it helped us. In the end, it did help us. It worked in our favour, and I think it really boosted the players.
At that time, I think the game was quite flat from a Panthers perspective. You know, there was no tempo at all, and then there was that incident, and then Jacina obviously levelled Stewart, and the crowd was well into it, and I think the players fed off that from then on in. So, you know, whatever you want to say about the rights and the wrongs of Jacina, you know, chucking an uppercut towards Stewart, it certainly had an impact in terms of getting the crowd involved again, and that's what we needed at that point because the game was going away from us.
Did you wait till the very end just so you could regurgitate everything that me, Paul and Adam said?
Yeah, I was doing the Simon Cowell. You know, there you go. I was seeing which way it was leaning, and then I just round it up. Sorry, Paul, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say just to close out. There were three things I wanted to mention that probably might have got missed in all the furore. I thought Modig had a decent game.
Yeah.
First game in, didn't have a huge amount to do, but didn't really have a chance for the goal. The one they thought they'd score, and I think Rowlick might still be celebrating. He didn't have much chance either. So I thought he had a solid game. But talking to Rowlick, he had a few incidents with the crowd tonight, a few words, but one of the people who was having words at the front of Block 12, as he went off, shook hands with him. And that's hockey. That's hockey for, leave it at the final whistle. That's what you want. And credit as well to their number 23, who took a puck to the leg late on a power play, but he kept going.
One final point to make, and there's been a lot said about the Blaze and how they aren't playing well. They look a beaten team every time they get on the ice, and again, I suppose it was a microcosm of their season tonight. They started well, and then in the third period just completely lost it, and Mark Lefebvre looked like a beaten man. He just looked like he had no ideas on the bench. How did the Blaze come out of this slump?
I think it was interesting how they lost their cool so quickly. I mean, we scored 3 goals in about 2.5 minutes?
150 seconds, I think.
That's 2.5 minutes, yeah. And then we took our time on the third, really. But as soon as we went 2-1, they'd gone, and that troubles you. And
I thought they'd gone at 1-1, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I think you're probably right. But what I didn't understand either was that timeout.
what with 20
seconds left. Why did you call the timeout then? You know, the only time you're going to call the timeout like normally is when you're going to put the F Troop out on to Pearl Harbor somebody. But you know that didn't, and it was just like it achieved. The only thing it achieved really was stopped us going in here quicker.
Do you think Lefebvre's on borrowed time?
I do think he's on borrowed time, unfortunately. You know, I think he came into the Blaze with good intentions. You know, it's always going to be a hard act to follow, following Thompson. You know, he's obviously a legend at Coventry and he's done a lot for the organisation. So whoever is going to fill his shoes, you know, has got a tough act to follow. But I just think that it's difficult because you know, he's been given the ability to build his own roster, and he has done. You know, there's obviously a few players there still from Tomo's time at the Blaze, but you know, for the most part, it's a new roster. But he's just not getting the guys to gel, and you know, it does seem like they've got a bit of a soft underbelly because they kind of took the lead tonight, obviously, but when they let that first goal in, they collapsed a bit, and that seems to be symptomatic of their season. You know, a good start, and then they just fold when the opposition score. So I do feel sorry for him a little bit because he's got big boots to fill and all that. But whether he'll be there at the end of the season or not, I don't know. To be honest, I think that a couple more big beatings and he might be being given his P45. Unfortunately, you never really want to see that with a hockey coach in this country. But you know, it's all about results, and if he's not getting the results, then you know, they might look for the next guy. Perhaps actually take player coach for the rest of the season. I don't know.
Aaron, final word. I would just like, my final word is, I think fair play. I'm not going to answer your question because Paul and Adam have answered that. So I think well done to the boys. You know, they showed a passion, character, a cool head at times when it was needed, and they stuck up for themselves and one another. Fair play to the Farminator. You know, he played his normal game, and I think, you know, the ginger ninja that is Jonathan Boxhill fully deserved his man of the match. So a good performance all round, and I said on Tuesday night we've got a team, and I think tonight we proved it.
So those were the thoughts of Saturday night. It's now Tuesday night and it's podcast recording time. I'm with Mr. Aaron Lord.
Good evening.
And Mr. Paul Balm.
Good evening.
Good evening. I think we'll move straight on to Sunday night against Cardiff, a 2-1 victory at the Big Blue Tent. Excellent victory for the Panthers.
Oh, I mean, it was. You know, that could be especially with the way other results went. I mean, that, you know, it could be a really important game. And I unfortunately didn't get the webcast, but I was watching it on Twitter, and it sounds like, you know, we had to spend a lot of time under pressure. But you know, we did that, and we rode it out for the win. It could be a really, really important win at the end of the season.
Certainly could. Aaron, you got the webcast like I did. What do you think of the performance overall? Because I thought it was an incredibly battling performance, and I thought the defence was absolutely superb on Sunday night.
Yeah, I'd fully agree there. I think as a team we defended, you know, very, very well, and what was pleasing for me was that it was a completely different performance from the last time we were in the BBT. You know, we stood up to Cardiff's physicality and we didn't let them bully us, which is very pleasing and to see, and something that a lot of Panthers fans have questioned whether, you know, we have the people to do that. And I think, you know, on Saturday night we saw it, but then to go into Cardiff's arena and not be bullied was very positive. So you know, I thought Berube had a fantastic weekend. You know, Boxhill, Lawrence. It was a gritty, solid road performance.
A controversial incident within the game when it was 2-1 to the Panthers, and Cardiff had a goal disallowed. Now, I must admit, from when I was watching it, I couldn't actually tell if the puck had gone in the net or not in real time. Obviously, the goal light didn't go on, but it appears from the slow motion replay that the puck did actually go through the net in the corner. And we've had a tweet as part of SCWTV from Andy Stevenson, who's a Brayhad fan, and they also had a goal, what looked a perfectly good goal, disallowed on Sunday evening. And he says, 2 good goals which could have changed the outcome of matches on Sunday. Is it time for video technology to be used? Every club has webcasts or highlights, so surely the equipment's available at every rink to do it. Now, I sent you the link to the Brayhead goal in Hull, which would have put them 1-0 up, and of course they ended up losing 6-2 in the end. and to me that did look a clear goal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the Braehead one seemed a lot clearer to me than the Cardiff one. Similar to you, obviously watching the webcast, it went through the net, shall we say, so quickly that from watching it on a webcast, it was very hard to see. Tom Darnell, the referee on the night, has come out and explained why the goal wasn't given, and you know, you kind of have to accept that. Obviously, Cardiff fans, from their point of view, might feel a little bit aggrieved, and you know, the Braehead fans will feel that as well, because they're big moments in games, and I just think the Braehead one's a little bit clearer. I think, you know, from watching it, you can see that it kind of goes in the net, but then it rebounds back off the inside of the net. So it's a slower motion than actually the Cardiff one, where it literally just flies through the net. So video replaying, I think it's a bit different than actually just providing a webcast or highlights. It's added equipment, so I think we're a little bit away from that, if I'm totally honest.
Paul, your view?
I agree with Aaron. You know, to be honest, you know, that it's not just a case of having something just to review the webcast. You know, you need cameras behind the goals, you know, to make sure. Because I mean, like say somewhere like Edinburgh, where the camera for the webcast is off centre, it, you know, it's better, makes it obviously better at one end than it does at the other. But in terms of the actual goal itself, especially the Cardiff one, I mean, you know, and the question, you know, did they change the outcome? Well, you know, yeah, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. You know, you can never say for certain. And at the end of the day, these things even out over the course of a season. There'll be occasions where we think we've scored a perfectly legitimate goal and it's not given. So, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate, it's human error, but you're always going to get that.
I mean, I suppose the view for me is that until every rink has the ability to put in the equipment to have video technology and video reviews, I don't think it should come in unless it's for every club, and every club can provide it.
Yeah, you can't have a situation where some clubs can do it, some can't, because, you know, it's going to affect people differently.
I actually spoke to Sean Phillips, Cardiff fan. He was the Cats Whiskers TV Devils correspondent last season. I spoke to him about the game on Sunday night and also the resurgence of the Cardiff Devils off the ice. On Sunday night, Panthers battled to a 2-1 victory in Cardiff, and to talk about that, as well as the renaissance of Devils off the ice, is our Cats Whiskers TV correspondent for the Devils from last season, Sean Phillips. How are you, mate?
I'm great, thank you, John. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very good, thank you. So, you was obviously in the Big Blue tent last night. Overall impressions of the game?
Compared to what the Devils have offered previously, it was very flat. I thought the Panthers pretty much came in and killed the game off, you know, played a perfect road game, made the Devils look mediocre, and didn't really let us play our game, which is, you know, exactly what Coach Nielsen wanted from them. It was bit of a shame to lose a 2-1 game like that, especially with the second goal coming off an awful turnover from Coach Andrew Lord at the board, straight to Robert Lakovic in the slot, and when, you know, high on bounce, you know, he's not going to miss those sort of shots. GB International, played in, you know, the Champions Hockey League in the summer, you know, he's not going to miss that. And for the Devils to also be disallowed a goal that, in all fairness to Tom Darnell, he's, you know, retrospectively said that it did, you know, go into the net and out to the boards, but, you know, that's hockey, you know, them's the breaks.
Yeah, I was actually going to talk to you about that, because I watched the webcast and there was no way you could tell it had gone in from the webcast. I think even from that the video that they've showed from behind the goal, it's very difficult to see it actually went in. What was your view in the rink? Because I'm not sure whereabouts you sit. Did you tell it went in?
I was directly behind the goal, obviously at the other end, where Ben Bounds was. And I couldn't really tell, to be honest with you. 1 minute I knew the puck was on Joey Hillard's stick, and the next it was in the corner of the boards. But I sort of saw everyone jump up, and, you know, Tom Darnell was a lot closer than I was, so he had the better call. But as soon as we can offer some video review and that sort of thing, then, you know, it's great to have. You know, we're lucky we have the facility, but others don't. So it's, you know, you have to sort of set the baseline where if only one team can do it, you know, the rest aren't allowed to do it. So,
Cardiff have been on a pretty good run, especially at home recently. So it must have been quite disappointing to lose last night.
Well, you know, you've got to lose at some stage. So I'd rather take a close game like that than us get drubbed by a very good Sheffield team, who, you know, are still my tip to win the league. But, you know, I think that the sort of as renaissance, as you said, that, you know, the Devils are playing a high energy style, very physical, very good on the home ice, as you said. I think we've only lost twice. Once to yourselves last night, and then to Sheffield in the cup. It was disappointing, but we'll bounce back and hopefully come back against Belfast.
Do you feel you've got a team that's really been built to play in the Big Blue Tent this year?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a very physical style. Our defence likes to move the puck right up the ice. Offensively, we offer a lot from the back. We had one of our options missing yesterday with Carl Hudson, who's due back in a few weeks. But, when the Devils sort of run out of ideas and can't figure out what to do, they've always got that option of utilising Carl Hudson. Obviously, that wasn't the case the past few weeks, but as soon as Hudson comes back and we have a full-strength team, we could definitely challenge him for those games home and away.
Just to move on slightly, it's obviously been a very exciting time for the Devils recently. Todd Kelman's come in and took over as general manager. You've got new owners, and it's really put to rest the sort of terrible season and on and off the ice that you had last time out. How have things changed? What's the atmosphere like amongst the fans at the moment?
Well, it's hard for me to sort of comment on the difference between last year, because I was one of the people who stayed away last year, only attended 5-6 home games last year. Mm-hmm. But you can definitely feel it. The first game of the season, when we walked in to play Belfast in pre-season, you walked in and you sort of felt everybody smiling. The vibe was good, and Todd's just instilled this very positive sort of ethos around the club that you walk in and you don't know what you're going to get, but you're going to see a team compete. And clearly the guys this year are young, hungry, want to prove themselves, along with a lot of seasoned pros who were giving them a lot of great benefits of all their experience.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this is the last season in the BBT. You're moving to a brand new arena for next season, so obviously a lot of excitement about that at the moment.
Yeah, it's great to go there every week and see it build up and build up. And my dad and I go for a coffee in the pool every week and sort of check on the progress and make sure stuff is still being done. But the BBT, it's one of the worst facilities in the league. But it is our home, and it has been for a long time. And without it, we wouldn't have hockey in Cardiff. So it'll be sad to say goodbye to it and the style of play that it offers to us. But very excited to get in there. Offer it as a new incentive to come play in Cardiff in a brand new facility, and begin to challenge for honours in a more consistent manner. I
wish you all the very best for the rest of the season and for next season with the move, and very many thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, John.
So the thoughts of Sean Phillips there, who was of course at the game on Sunday at the Big Blue Tent. We've actually had a tweet from Panthers Banter, which is related to Cardiff as part of Ask CWTV. He says, "Are Cardiff underachieving this year? Fans seem really happy, but they're still in 8th place with 50% wins." Aaron?
I think it's a good question, but I think we have to take it in the fact that they've played 11 games, and there's a lot of hockey left to be played, and yes, they are in 8th place, but they're also 8 points behind Belfast and Brayhead, who are joint top at the moment. So I think it's more of a case of let's see where they are at the end of the season. But I think the fact that Todd Kelman's come in with the owners, it's not just about this season. It's not about short term. They're obviously implementing, long-term foundations. And I think one of those is obviously the fact that they've extended Andrew Lord's contract. So it's more about building a long-term project for me for Cardiff. Who's to say that in a month's time we won't be talking about them being second or third? So it's a wait and see.
Yeah, true. Paul?
Yeah, I agree. But I think the one thing Aaron touched on there, that I was quite surprised at the Andrew Lord appointment so soon into his role as player coach, to then be given 2-year extension. Maybe they see something in him, and the management building towards. But I agree. Underachieving. It's only just November. Who can say at this point in time that there's an imbalance of who's played who? Once it starts leveling out, ask us this question in January, February. We'll have a better answer to that.
Mm. Looking around at some of the other results that took place over the weekend, it was not a great weekend for Brayhead, who of course went into the games at the weekend top of the league. 3 games they played, 3 and 3 nights. A loss to Belfast, a home win to Dundee on Saturday, and then a loss on Sunday to the Hull Stingrays. So, they still remain top, but level with Belfast, who of course beat them on Friday, but then lost to Coventry Blaze in what was a quite surprising result on Sunday evening. Yeah,
very surprising, to be honest. Who would have thought that maybe after, watching Coventry on Saturday night that they'd go and pull out a result like that? Just very, very surprising. And I suppose that shows you that, maybe not. Anybody could beat anybody, and
I knew you were going to say that.
I know it's one of your favourites, Paul. I didn't know. But
it's all right. You can have it this time.
Thanks. It's good for the league though that those results pop up every now and again. But yeah, from a Coventry's point of view, you'd like to hope that is not just a one-off. They can maybe go on some sort of run now and build. Well, confidence is one word, but we've talked about Coventry earlier on, haven't we? So. Yeah, just a very surprising result, that one.
I mean, also on Saturday, Fife beating Hull 8-3, and then, of course, they won again on Sunday evening. So, a 4-point weekend for the Fife Flyers, 4-point weekend for Nottingham. But I suppose one of the biggest surprises as well was Sheffield, who thrashed Edinburgh 10-2 on Saturday, and then succumbed...
The code! What about the code?
And then succumbed to the bottom-placed Dundee Stars as they were then on Sunday evening, 4-2. Again, another surprising result.
Yes, Sunday was quite a good day, really, wasn't it?
I think we can call it Super Sunday, quite frankly, because I think every result went our way, including our own.
It was, we couldn't have asked for a better set of results, really. But on an evening of surprises, including our own result, for me at least anyway, that was probably one of the biggest. That along with Hull beating Braehead. Although my spine Hull did tell me that A, Braehead weren't very good, and B, they had to collect the toys up afterwards after they'd been thrown everywhere.
However, just to counter that slightly, when we seen the video that after 25 seconds or a minute or whatever it was that they scored what looked like a perfectly legitimate goal that wasn't even given, could that have had a different complexion on the game?
Possibly, yeah. But as I said earlier, these things happen. I mean, look at our own game against Coventry on Saturday night. There was a team there that lost their heads and lost the game. And we also, I also want to mention, we talked about Mark Lefebvre, what he got to do with the team, and how quickly that team lost their heads. Well, he must have done something.
Yes,
because to beat Belfast on the night after when we looked at them at the end of that game Saturday night, and it looked like their focus was completely gone.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. But from what they were saying, that Jeff DaCosta, who of course came in for his debut at the weekend, absolutely led the team on Sunday. So it seems to have made.
Well, that's what that team needs to me: somebody to lead them.
Yeah, and it seems to have made a big difference already. One of the pieces of big news that came out last week was, of course, the Belfast Giants signing of Kevin Westgarth, straight out of the NHL, and a Stanley Cup winner with the Los Angeles Kings in 2012. That's a huge signing for the Belfast Giants, figuratively and literally.
He's a tall bloke, isn't he?
He is. He's a big lad.
One thing that I wouldn't have thought Belfast needed was an enforcer. Because let's be honest, Adam Keefe is never shy at dropping the gloves and standing up for his teammates.
True. But do you think he'll be coming in as an enforcer?
I mean, I would say probably 60-70% of him is coming in as an enforcer. I mean, I imagine he's, to go from the NHL to the EIHL, let's be honest, it's quite a drop.
Big for the league, though.
It is good for the league, but let's see, will he be here at the end of the season? Is he coming here to try and play a little bit to then maybe get a contract somewhere else? These are all ifs and buts and questions that will be asked. But, I mean, from a Belfast point of view, it's fantastic that they've got that 12th import slot filled, and I'm sure he's going to bring bums on seats, as they say. He's going to bring so much... he's going to bring Stanley Cup winning experience, and that's hard to come by. So Belfast have pulled out a coup there, and we'll see how he'll perform in this league.
It's a big signing. It's a big signing for the league. It's a big signing for Belfast. But it surprised me as well. This is going to sound harsh, and there are some people who might say it's sour grapes or whatever, but what I want to know is, why is he here? Why is he gone from the NHL to the EIHL? Why did nobody in between want to pick him up?
Pretty sure he's taken quite a hefty drop in wages in order to come here. But
if what I read is right, he was getting paid what some teams in this league pay their whole team in a year. If what I read is right, which with anything like that, you have to doubt sometimes.
I suppose it can only be. I suppose it's only supposition on our part, but I believe he's got an MBA course as part of his deal, which is obviously going to be a bit of a sweetener, and maybe he's just looking to life after hockey, and Belfast were the only ones who could offer him that sort of deal.
From what I've read about what obviously Thornton said as well, is that he wants to kind of shake off that tag of an enforcer. So maybe Belfast will give him the opportunity to play a little bit, where in the NHL and maybe other leagues he might have not been given that opportunities.
Because I think from what I read, he was averaging about 6 minutes a game on the ice in the NHL. And obviously, I would think that's going to be greatly increased when he's playing for the Giants. Well, you would you would certainly think so.
Exactly.
Okay, shall we move on to some Ask CWTV questions?
Why not?
Yeah, got some very, very good questions coming through this week. The quality is definitely improving.
Shame about the rest of the show.
Well, anyway, first question. That comes from Alex McElwain, who I believe is a Belfast fan. He says, do you think the conference system will be a major factor on who wins the league this year with a strong Braehead team? Aaron, I'll come to you first with that one.
My initial answer would be yes. You would have to say that it would do, because no disrespect to the teams up there, but you look at Dundee and Edinburgh being the two bottom teams at the bottom of the league, and Braehead will have to face them more times than our conference teams.
They did get a bit of a thrashing from Hull at the weekend, though.
This is what I was just going to say. From a Braehead point of view, they are going to have to win their conference games. Any slip up that they have in that conference puts extra pressure on when they come and face the Belfast, the Nottinghams, the Sheffields, etc., the Coventrys, the Cardiff, and vice versa. When say we go up to Scotland or against Hull, we need to be picking up points there. If any team in this conference is going to win the league, because it's very competitive. So my initial answer would be yes, but this weekend's results probably say no.
Paul?
Isn't this the question that's been always been asked ever since the conference system was introduced?
Pretty much, and it always seems to be Braehead who are always the ones.
Because Braehead are the ones that are perceived as having the money, aren't they? Will it have an effect? Yes, probably. Has it had an effect before? Don't know, really. I mean, you've got to remember the year we won the league. We might not have won our own conference, but we'd have won the other one.
Yeah, that's
we got more points than in that conference than anybody actually in that conference did. But I don't know. It hasn't done yet, but maybe this is the year it does. We'll see.
We'll see. Actually, I suppose we'll know in March. Second question. In fact, it comes a two-part question, because there was actually an answer to this one as well before we actually discuss it. So this comes from David Carnell. He says, Freddie Black suggested on Twitter that some clubs are going with 4 lines in the next year or so. Will this be negative for British development? The fourth line will generally be limited to 3 or 4 shifts per game compared to what they get with their EPL teams. It will be a positive for the EIHL, but for the likes of our 3 guys, so I assume he means County or Betteridge, they need regular shifts to continue development and the odd call-up, in my opinion. However, before we got a chance to answer that ourselves, Freddie Black actually replied to that and tagged us in. So this was his response to that tweet. He said, I see this as a positive. The way the numbers work, I think teams will be looking to pick up 1 additional Brit. This also gives the 10th or 11th forward a regular and settled line to play on, rather than just being a spare player. It also has good knock-on effects. Players have more energy. There's potential to pick up a tough guy for the fourth line, and it could also stop third-line Brits being forced to play as grinders. So, David's question, there's Freddie's response, and a pretty detailed response. So, who wants to come in on that one first?
How did he get that many words into 140 characters?
There was about 4 tweets apiece. I've just pieced them all together.
It all depends for me on how the coaches play it. If they do run a proper 4-line system, then it can only be good for the players, and then they'll be playing and learning from players of a higher standard. Then, with all due respect to the EPL, they're not getting the quality of people like West Garth in there, are they? But if the coach basically, we've got 4 lines, but 4th line hardly ever gets on, there's no point them being there.
Aaron?
It's a very interesting point, to be honest, and I think it's one that, you could actually just have one show on that.
You probably could, actually, to be fair, yeah.
Because there's pros and cons from both sides, which obviously Paul's just mentioned. And I have to agree with what Paul says in the sense of, I do think it is down to the coach. And I think, you take, and we can only take this from our own Panther experiences, Corey Nielsen, in my eyes, has always been somebody that is willing to play the kids. The EPL guys got a shift against Hamburg, and he's willing to see that they need to be developed. They need to play when they're on our roster to help the development.
I think that's a really good point you make, actually, because we've seen that whenever they've been part of the team this season, they have made a difference. They've been more than capable when they've iced the odd shift, and of course it gives the other players a bit of a rest and a bit more recuperation time on the bench.
I might be wrong here, but I think that's something that even Benny might have said. I'm sure I've read it somewhere that he said, it gives the other players, an extra 30 seconds to get a breather back, etc. So I think it might be worth actually speaking to these players as well. What would they rather do? Would they rather be playing in the EPL for another season, getting regular shifts? Obviously, we all know it's a lower standard, or would they rather be 4th line in the Panthers, knowing that they might get 50% less shifts, but they're in and around the Panthers organisation, for example, that they feel part of that team all the time? What do these youngsters want to do? Do they want to be at a smaller club and develop there, or would they rather be in the big pond, shall we say, and mix it with the big boys?
So maybe it depends on the player. What they want to do. Different players obviously develop at different speeds. But
of course,
going back to what Aaron said about asking them, Tom Norton was in the Post this week, and he said he basically, obviously he's not sort of a youngster. No offence to him, but he is compared to me, obviously, but most people are. But, and he was saying he went, much as he enjoyed his time at Panthers, he went to Peterborough because he wanted more ice time.
Yeah.
But, other players may see it differently.
I suppose it again, like Aaron said, it depends on the coach whether those players get played. I suppose it depends on the player whether they want the ice time by playing in the EPL, or whether they think they've got a shot at the higher league and maybe risk bench warming a bit in the EIHL. It's a difficult situation, I suppose, and I suppose it depends on each of the players. I think David responded to another tweet later on which says you only look at James Neal and the way he's developed, because he was touted as the next big thing a few years ago at Panthers, and now he's sort of been at Manchester for probably the five or six seasons and never really got that shot again at the Elite League.
Well, just on that's something that Sam Oakford's talked about as well this season, in the fact that he felt that he had to make the move this season, or he might never have made that step up. It's a tough one to call, and it's and I don't think you could do this. But could the league, have a ruling where that 4th line has to be made up of so many Brits, or I don't think you could ever say, right, you must give them 10 shifts a game, etc. But
no, that wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't work. But could the league implement some sort of development ruling? But then we're widening it all back down to...
I think that just makes it more complicated, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It really is, because, like Paul says, different players feel differently, and we've brought out, a few examples there of Tom Norton, Neil, and Sam Oakford. So it's a can of worms, really, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is. Okay, we'll leave that one there for the moment. Final question, which will lead lovely into the weekend preview, I think. So it's from Ben Stretton. He says 7 wins in a row for the Panthers, with a few injuries and tough games coming up. Can we keep the win record up?
Paul?
Possibly. I thought you'd come to me with that one. Part of me says yes, part of me says no.
Could I just interject here very quickly? If we think back to our previous games, there was the game against Belfast where a lot of people thought we was going to lose. We came through that, we won the game. And then Cardiff this Sunday, a lot of people said, I saw on the forum, it'd be a miracle if we get anything out of that game. We go and win in regulation time. We're having these obstacles put in front of us, and yet we're still coming through them, and we're now on a 7-game winning streak. So surely there must be a lot of confidence within the team because we just keep winning.
Within the team, you'd hope so. Yeah, I mean, because you're right. They keep grinding these results out. I mean, going to Cardiff and winning 2 defencemen short. There was no Cody Wilde. There was no Charles Landry. And being short of those 2 players against Cardiff in their home ring, that to come away with the points from that, I thought was an excellent result. But me, I'm never confident personally. So I hope they prove me wrong.
I think let's be realistic and say it's going to come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
Will that be this weekend? Then I'm not too sure it will be. Actually, I think. We are going into the game against Sheffield, first of all, in the best possible way that we could do. We've won 7 on the bounce. It's at home. The week before, we've just had a fantastic spectacle against another close rivals of ours. There's talk of Higgins being back. There's talk of even Wild being back. Bodies are starting to come back. I think it's about time people, kind of got rid of the negativity and actually realised, what you said, Jono, that we've grounded out results with 7 on the bounce. We should be going into this game against Sheffield in buoyant mood and confident that we'll be able to pull off a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree.
Can I just point something out?
Of course you can, yeah.
I'm not being negative, I'm just not confident.
I didn't say you were the negative one, Paul. I just said there's.
I know what you meant.
I think we've got every chance of winning on Saturday. I mean, we're obviously coming in on a 7-game run. Sheffield have lost, so there might be a bit of a backlash from them losing on Sunday, and we're better for them.
If they're playing against us, you'd expect it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and we're, like you say, we're better for them to get back on a winning track than against their biggest rivals. But I think we've got more than enough to contain Sheffield, despite the fact that they do have some incredibly potent scoring amongst their ranks.
I think yet again it's another of those games that you look at early in the season and as a test of where you are in as a team compared to the others. These things we seem to have a lot. It's like that against Red. It's like that against Belfast. Well, this is another. It's when you look at the games against teams who are going to be where you would expect to be at the end of the season. That you look at those games, but I mean, Aaron says it's going to have to come to an end at some point. Or if it does, then we just got to get back on the horse and try and do it again. But I hope it doesn't.
Okay, well, to get a Sheffield perspective on the weekend and the weekend's game, I spoke to our former Sheffield correspondent, Scott Antcliffe. The biggest rivalry in Europe, as they say, comes back to the NIC on Saturday, and I'm delighted to welcome Scott Antcliffe, a Sheffield fan, who's going to look ahead to the game with me. Are you alright, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you, Jono. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks, mate. So, first league game at the NIC on Saturday of this season. Of course, 2 Challenge Cup games have gone in the past. Victory for the Panthers and home victory for the Steelers. So, how do you see this one going?
It's going to be a tough one. I mean, Panthers are finding their feet a little bit now after their earlier, I guess, inconsistencies in Europe. You guys have got Modig, who by all accounts is doing really well. I managed to watch the webcast against Cardiff yesterday. I was a bit bored and thought, Steelers Dundee game's not covered on a webcast, so figured I'd watch yours, and I thought it was outstanding. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Steelers, they've been doing well, except for his little blip against Dundee, which was a surprise after particularly giving Edinburgh a bit of a pace than the previous night. So I think it's going to be a tough one on Saturday, and certainly one I'll be looking forward to anyway.
I was going to say it was quite a surprising result last night, considering that Dundee, I think, were 8 games without a victory, and you've been absolutely flying, especially your forward lines. You seem to be scoring for fun, so that really was a shock result in every sense of the word.
Yeah, I think what it could have been a case of we got a bit too complacent maybe from the previous night. So we beat Edinburgh 10-2 and we probably thought, Dundee, maybe we underestimated them. But I've just recently interviewed Rob Dowd about an hour or two ago for the Steelers programme, and he mentioned up there they just ran into a hot goalie and we couldn't put the puck in the back of the net. So apparently Chevry from Dundee had a blinder. And even though Steelers outplayed them for the most part and outshot them, we just couldn't put the puck in the back of the net. And considering we've done that fairly well this season with, our first couple of lines, and particularly that top line, it was quite surprising. So I guess it was just an off night, really.
Of course, your top line has been firing on all cylinders. Who's been the real standout players so far for you?
Oh, it's a tough one, because I think any of that first line, the chemistry they've got, and particularly so early on in the season, straight off the bat, all 3 of those guys, Forney, Fretter and Waugh, could score any amount of goals on any given night. So it's really an exciting line to watch. But I think Tyler Mosienko's flown under the radar a bit. He's been really underrated. And he's been outstanding. His work ethic, his skating. He's not the biggest of guys, so he takes a bit of sort of punishment physically from other teams, and particularly, I guess, more so with his reputation and how he's coming to the league. He's kind of been targeted a little bit, as we saw against Cardiff. But I think Mosienko's been really good, but not got the plaudits as such. But I think Doyle's been outstanding in net, and particularly now as defensive unit, we've got such a strong defensive core, and particularly now we've added Ben O'Connor. It just gives us that extra element and that extra transition from defensive zone to offence.
Having watched the Panthers game on Sunday and seen them a couple of times this season, who do you think, who worries you from the Panthers side? Who do you think are the washouts?
Well, since Clark's come back from injury, he's been great. I really like Clark. I've rated him for years. But some of the big guys you've got there, like Lawrence, he's finding his feet a bit. He can move well. He can play the body. Obviously, Nathan Robinson's a threat. He's such a good skater, so good on the puck, very smart player. So a number of guys, and particularly, I guess, with Modig as well, because he's a bit of an unknown quantity. He's only played a couple of games, so Steelers tend to feel out a goalie who's been around the league a while, like Kewell. You tend to know his sort of weaknesses, and you know how to play against him. But I guess with Modig, you don't know what you're going to get, so could be a case of see what happens on the night and try and adjust accordingly, I guess.
Just a quick question about the rivalry itself. We saw on Saturday night against Coventry where the NIC was absolutely buzzing for that game. And it seems that the Sheffield rivalry has probably been downplayed somewhat over the last few games. The games are quite overhyped and don't tend to live up to it. Is that something that's felt in Sheffield? Because it's certainly something that seems to be felt in Nottingham now, and a lot of Nottingham fans are saying that Coventry is more our rivalry.
Yeah, I think that is, there's quite a bit of truth to that, and particularly with some of the fans I've been talking to, they've mentioned that as well. And I think with so many new players for each team, I guess the guys haven't really bought into the rivalry as much as what the previous players have, when you tend to retain more players. And I guess your British players know what it's all about, because most of them have been around for a while and really know how to play those games, and they really get pumped up for it. But I guess for the new guys, the new imports, it's just another game for them. Even though they will have been told about the rivalry, you still don't understand it till you've experienced it for a while. And I guess that's just essentially what's happened there. But it's a shame, because the Steelers-Panthers rivalry has always traditionally been a good one in the past, and it's a shame it's fizzled out a bit. But who knows? Hopefully, we can have a few fireworks on Saturday, and it might rekindle.
All right. Well, last question before I leave you, mate. Quick prediction for Saturday.
I think it's going to be close. I think there'll be a goal either way, maybe, or a goal or two either way. I'd like to think the Steelers might edge it, but you never know. So I'm going to go with a 3-2 Steelers win.
Okay, mate. Well, appreciate your time and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jono.
So the thoughts of Scott Antcliffe there. Interesting that he mentions about the rivalry and how it's perceived in Sheffield and how it could be sort of diminishing there a little bit. I mean, what do you guys think? Paul, I'll come to you first.
I think it's interesting because it sort of confirms what we've said one way and another. I mean, I still think the rivalry is there. It's just having a bit of a quiet moment. But we've got a rivalry going with Coventry at the moment. Who is theirs with, if not us?
I think Coventry's is with Cardiff generally.
I mean, who's his Sheffield's with then?
Oh, right, I see. I think they've sort of mentioned Hull and they've mentioned Cardiff themselves, but their big rivalry is with us. I mean, why else would Dave Sims go on about it all the time? I suppose. I mean, I would think they would perceive that their big rivalry is with the Panthers.
Well, I still think our big rivalry is with Sheffield. Those are the games you look for first. I just think, like any rivalry, it's going through a quiet patch.
Aaron?
I agree, but I'm not sure how long I will agree for in a way, because I said this on Saturday after the Coventry game, but for me, that's your rivalry currently. Our rivalry is with Coventry now. I think there will always be a rivalry, should I say, with Sheffield. And Paul says that it's just going through a quiet patch. They're two different rivalries for me now. The Coventry one is an intense type of rivalry. The Sheffield one is like one it's always been there, for God knows how many years. So it still has to stay there. I just think Saturday will be a great chance to see whether that rivalry is at the same level as Coventry's for me. And if it doesn't seem to be like that, then I think you do have to say that the tide is kind of turning, and our rivalry is with Coventry, not with Sheffield. They're not in the same sort of league.
I think a lot could depend on what happens on the ice, though, a bit like what it did on Saturday. I think something kicks off or something happens, then the crowd will naturally get involved anyway. So I suppose, we as you say, we will find out on Saturday. Of course, Sunday, Panthers travel back up to Scotland to take on the Edinburgh Capitals. Edinburgh at the bottom of the league with just 5 points from their Elite League games so far. And you'd like to think that we should go up there and be able to get the points, but I suppose if Sunday taught us anything, it was that we cannot expect to get 2 points.
Well, if I'm totally honest, if you said to me out of the two games, which one am I more worried about, I would say Sunday.
Really?
Yep.
What's that
I
then?
really do, because I think we're at home on Saturday. We're against Sheffield. These are the games that people want to play in, etc. The Edinburgh's, you're going up there on a Sunday afternoon. It's a different type of game, and I think these are the games that you can easily lose, as we saw last weekend with other teams. Give me playing Coventry, Sheffield any day over the Scottish teams in their rinks, because I think they're the harder ones to a certain degree. They're the ones that if you do end up winning, then you're on the road to winning trophies potentially. I think if we get a positive result on Saturday, then I would expect us to get a 4-point weekend, but I would be far more nervous about Sunday than Saturday, if I'm honest.
Okay, Paul?
It's the sort of game that you can't be complacent going into, and it's very easy to be, isn't it? You'd think a game against Sheffield that everybody's going to be, the team should be pumped up for that, and then it's very easy, I think, at times, and I think as a team, Panthers have shown this time and time again, that the mentality of, it's only such and such, all we've got to do is turn up to win. You can't do that, and as Sunday did show us, anybody can win on any given night. I thought I'd get my own back on Aaron using my phrases. You'd hope, really, that you'd beat Edinburgh. I mean, it looks like Robinson might still be here. That'll be a treat for him. If he wasn't that wild about Hull.
Well, that's an
to Edinburgh.
That's an interesting point actually you make about Robinson, because this should be his final 2 games for the Panthers unless anything is sorted out this week, or if his contract is extended. As we record this, nothing has been said, but so I suppose we've got to assume that he'll be on his way after Sunday's game,
which will be a big loss. But we've talked about that before, and we kind of knew what we were getting with Robinson in the first place. He's been here longer than what probably 90% of us would have thought in the first place. So he's actually, there's an interview with him on the Panthers website this evening actually, and he talks about how both games, the Saturday night and the Sunday night in Edinburgh, are big games. So I think he's pumped for this weekend, but it wouldn't surprise me in one way if we don't see a press release and he's there for another 2 weeks.
Well, let us hope so. So I suppose that covers it off for this week, unless you guys have got anything else to add.
No, I don't think so. It's just it's obviously a very positive time to be a Panther, as I think Corey Nielsen said in one of his interviews this week or this weekend just gone. It's a good time to be a Panther, and I think as fans we should enjoy and embrace this 7 on a trot and get behind the team on Saturday night to make that 8.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Paul, anything else?
I'm not confident.
As usual.
What a perfect way to end.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, I'd be worried if you were confident, if I'm perfectly honest. Anyway,
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, and I will no doubt see you in the week.
You will do. Take care, Jono. Right. Take care, Paul.
Cheers, John. Cheers, Aaron. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks very much for listening once again. If you want to get in touch with the show, please do so via Twitter. It's at CatsWhiskersTV. But until next week, thanks once again for listening, and goodbye.